There have been a lot of great runs in Magic recently, and a lot of great runs in Magic history. Every time a player achieves stratospheric levels of success, it leads to a comparison. Without fail, the comparison of those runs come back to one player. The player who truly set the standard of what it means to have an epic run. Of course, that player is Kai Budde.
Kai Budde is the greatest Magic player of all time, and I don't say this to discredit the many great players that came before and after Kai. But in the never-ending debate between John Finkel or Kai Budde, even with names like Nassif, LSV, and Paulo Vitor Damo da Rosa, all worthy of similar consideration, I have always backed Kai in these conversations for one simple reason. No one has ever won, and likely ever will win, as much as Kai Budde. There is a reason he is immortalized with the phrase, "Kai doesn't lose on Sundays." Even a contemporary great like Javier Dominguez will have the same German juggernaut staring back at them when history is all said and done. No one has ever been as good as Kai for as long as Kai, and that legacy continues to this day. Kai has achieved top 8s at the Worlds or Pro Tour level in 4 different decades. He has won Player of the Year more than anyone. He has more individual Pro Tour titles than anyone, and more Pro Tour titles overall than anyone will presumably ever win. In almost all metrics, Kai clears most if not all of the Pro Tour field, and that hunger to win has never been sated, even for a player as successful as Kai. But Magic is an old game. And while Kai has been around for almost all of its competitive history, there was a time where players could show up to tournaments and not have to worry about settling for second, something that in Kai's most dominant era seemed to be inevitable for everyone but the German juggernaut himself. Like all superheroes, Kai's legendary legacy began somewhere, and for a young German student in the late 90s that happened to both enjoy and be pretty good at slinging spells, that moment would come in spectacular fashion at the 1999 World Championships. This is the origin story of Magic's GOAT.
Thousands have gathered for a sport of the mind, a card game where destiny is decided by an ultimate test of strategy and skill. Here at the 1999 Magic the Gathering World Championship.
Now, as convenient as the narrative would be if it were true, Kai Budde did not start his Pro Tour career dominating everyone. A promising player from the German Magic hotbed of Cologne, he quickly became acquainted with the strong German players of the area. Budde's first Pro Tour would come in 1997 at a limited event in New York where he played as a junior, finishing in the top 32. While looking back, the junior division was likely the stronger of the two given the array of talent at those tables. It wouldn't last too long, being discontinued after Budde's first outing. As a result, Kai's top 32 would qualify him for Pro Tour mains as an adult, where he finished in 52nd. Not bad for your first 2 tournaments, but hardly the work of the greatest of all time. Budde would quickly requalify for the Pro Tour, next competing in another limited event in 1998 at Pro Tour Chicago, a mainstay of the early days of the tour. This Chicago stop will actually mark the second time in 3 eventually consecutive Chicago events that a rookie will make the finals, as Chicago 1998 is sandwiched in history between 2 video-worthy extended Pro Tours. And this event is won by a German player, just not by Kai. Instead, his future teammate Dirk Babarowski claimed the hardware as Kai finished a modest 19th, clearly demonstrating his talent for the game. Following that, Kai would go on a tear on the Grand Prix circuit, winning 3 different events within a span of 6 months. Most professional players are doing well if they top 8 that many GPs in a similar time span, and Kai managed to win them all, a feat that would earn him his other, slightly less exciting but still impressive nickname, King of the Grand Prix, a title that would hold up until the eventual end of the GP circuit, as Budde would finish in first, tied with 2 other players for the highest number of GP wins ever. So coming into the 1999 World Championships, Kai was a known threat, but a player that was in some ways unproven on the game's biggest stage, Pro Tour Sunday. He'd even scrubbed out of both German Nationals and the European Championships that same season. One of the informal metrics used throughout Pro Tour history to track a player on the rise is who is the best player without a Pro Tour top 8. And while I don't know what the answer is in 1999, it's probably safe to say that Kai was the obvious choice if not a strong candidate. So as players descended upon Yokohama, Japan for the incoming World Championships, which would be the first time the event was not only held in Japan, but outside of the US altogether, as always, we have to focus in on the format that's going to ultimately determine our champion, Standard. The legal sets for this 1999 event are 6th edition, Tempest, Stronghold, Exodus, Urza's Saga, Urza's Destiny, and Urza's Legacy. If you're an old head Magic player, or maybe just an attentive watcher of the channel, you'll know just how terrifying including the word Urza in front of Magic sets is. But thankfully, by the time August of 1999 rolls around when this tournament is happening, Standard has seen quite a lot of shakeup, as the ban list has been very active. While this series of sets certainly contains some of Magic's most powerful cards, from January of 1999 to the start of Worlds, the following cards have been banned in Standard. If you're familiar with Magic's past, there should be more than a few names on this list that stick out to you.
Something very familiar about all this.
Tolarian Academy, Windfall, Dream Halls, Earthcraft, Fluctuator, Lotus Petal, Recurring Nightmare, Time Spiral, Memory Jar, and Mind Over Matter all got banned before this World Championships, while Replenish, Living Death, Yawgmoth's Will, and yes, even Yawgmoth's Bargain are some of the standout powerhouses still left standing. A lot of the blue and combo heavy pieces have been nixed, leaving us with a format that's full of a lot of fair decks. Also, let's take a moment for Fluctuator being on a list alongside an otherwise who's who of Magic's absolutely busted rectangles, but it was a real deck. A cursory look at the top 8 metagame though shows the effects of these bans up quite well, as multiple green stompy, red land destruction decks, and the odd mono black deck all feature. In fact, the format is a testament to some of the classic pitfalls of old Magic design, as two things are very apparent as you look at the decks that have risen to the top. The first is that the mana fixing in this format is horrible, with the Tempest dual lands being some of the best 2-color fixes you can play, which if you know anything about that cycle, you'll quickly recognize them as some of the worst duels ever printed. Cards that are so loaded with downsides, you have to wonder how big of an impact the original dual land cycle had on early Magic design. While 6th edition did contain City of Brass and the allied colored pain lands, so much of this format's mana led you to play either powerful colorless lands or lands that work best in monocolor, with the Urza's Legacy man lands being some of the best weapons decks could wield, but were a struggle to put in anything other than a single color deck. The second is that Tempest was the set that introduced the world to Wasteland, one of Eternal Magic's most ubiquitous utility lands even today, and one that punished you for playing non-basic lands, which included all of the awful 2-color lands you had access to if you did dare to bring a multicolor deck to the tournament. With so much land hate and monocolor being the clear default for almost any strategy in this standard, there is a notable absence from the ban list, and all of the world's top 8 lists bar one though. Something that is rampant in both blocks, but particularly in the Urza block: fast mana, especially fast artifact mana, which doesn't particularly care about your wastelands and stone rains. See, the German contingent of this Worlds have brought a strategy stuffed with mana sources that looks to convert that mana into a threat so large so quickly that there's no chance of coming back. Featuring Mastercore, a card so broken it was referenced as such in the flavor text of Deep Analysis years later in Odyssey block, and the gigantic flyer Covetous Dragon. Sure, the dragon does need you to have artifacts in order to stick around, but this deck has a cool 28 of those, most of them mana X elements to go alongside the legacy power level Soul Lands, Ancient Tomb, and City of Traders, which also often do their damage before Wasteland can become relevant. After all, once you've played your Grim Monolith on turn 1, that Wasteland looks a lot worse. Funneling these hordes of mana into a variety of threats, the deck was ruthlessly efficient at dispatching the standard strategies present at the event, and to top it all off, had a name that was as fitting as it was awesome sounding: the German Dragon. Between Temporal Aperture to generate card advantage, Mishra's Helix to lock down your opponent's lands, and the deck's creatures, there was always a hammer to be brought down on your opponent after you generated absurd amounts of mana with Worn Power Stone, Fire Diamond, and Thran Dynamo. But the deck was particularly potent when it landed the early 2-card combo of Voltaic Key and Grim Monolith. Underneath all this though was one more component that took this deck from merely very good to making matchups so one-sided that all you can do is laugh. Wildfire, a card that not only helped control the board, but often took all of your opponent's lands out with it. And even though the effect is symmetrical, all of Kai's artifact mana dodged the incoming Inferno and made Wildfire a very one-sided affair. While Kai did recognize that the deck did have some bad matchups, notably Replenish, he didn't expect people to really play that deck. So by the time he gets to his first ever PT level top 8, he's looking at a sea of creature-based decks that are woefully behind his big mana strategy. This is beautifully exemplified in Budde's only on-camera semifinal game, as by the time we get over to their table, he's already up 2-0 on Raffaele Lamoro's Green Stompy list. Game 3 starts pretty typically as Lamoro deploys some creatures and Budde deploys some artifacts, before stalemating the board a little by laying down a Covetous Dragon. While Lamoro does have some Uktabi Orangutans to try and disrupt Budde and make him sacrifice his dragon, he doesn't have enough mana to chew through all of the artifacts to eject the dragon from the battlefield. So the players spend some time passing back and forth as Lamoro builds up a wide board of small creatures. With Kai already behind on life, the dragon isn't really able to race effectively and the game stalls out. As each player trades turns playing lands, Kai slowly but surely finds the piece he's looking for. And as he top decks a Wildfire, he says one of the funniest things I've heard in a while.
I'm such a good player.
While this one-liner is indicative of the German's trademark dry sense of humor, as he's poking a bit of fun at himself for his fortunate draw, he's kind of right in a way. He's at least a good enough player to put the card Wildfire in his deck, as he did have a direct hand in designing this deck. In fact, let's take a quick moment to play a little trivia game. How many of Kai's creatures die to Wildfire? Well, Khan certainly will, unless the well-known Pacifist Golem happens to get in combat with a small enough creature that same turn, although Khan does have the fun upside of being able to animate your opponent's artifacts to make them vulnerable to your Wildfire as well. Mastercore dies too, but does have the ability to be regenerated if you have enough leftover mana. And of course, the deck's namesake Covetous Dragon doesn't, which is all according to plan. So fully half of Kai's creatures are immune naturally, and the other half all have some scenarios where they could live through it. That's pretty good deck building, if you ask me. How many of Lamoro's creatures survived though? With maybe an exception handed out to Honorary Ape Treetop Village, literally 0 of them, and Village often gets swept up in the sacrifice for lands part of the deal. While the green Stompy deck can regenerate a good number of their creatures if they have extra mana, they are basically completely cold to the 6 mana sorcery. Let's keep playing. What about his finals opponent, Mark Lepine? Once again, 0. Mono black midrange, basically 0, although technically Phyrexian Negator will survive the 4 damage, but if you're getting a Negator wildfired, you are losing even harder than if you simply got wildfired. The positioning of Wildfire in this deck is extraordinary, especially in the context of the top 8 Budde finds himself in. Though as the Wildfire ends up casually 9 for 1ing Lamoro, Budde swiftly switches to going on the offense with his dragon before finding a second one to help close things out. As Kai casts his second superfluous Covetous Dragon of this game though, notice even this little sequence he enacts. Kai is narrating his play beautifully here, so I'll just let it speak for itself.
4 untap this one left, 4, 5, Covetous Dragon.
If you didn't catch that, Kai tapped his monolith for mana, untapped it with its own ability, then retapped it to get exactly enough mana combined with his Fire Diamond in order to cast another dragon. While he does have 5 mana between the City of Traders and the untapped monolith, he needs the red mana from the diamond in order to cast his creature, so he's essentially using the lesser used ability of Grim Monolith to filter for a red mana. Obviously, he could just tap 6 mana here and be good though, so why is this anything? Well, 1999 still has mana burn in the game, so Kai bothers to do all this dancing between his permanents just so he doesn't take a single extra point of damage in a game that he is probably favored to win if he let Lamoro cast Time Walk 3 times in a row. That is the level of technical detail Kai gets into. He's not interested in giving away even the slightest margin to his opponent, and his play has stayed this crisp for almost 2 decades. Even in a moment that could never matter in this game, Kai knows every in and out to make sure it won't matter even in the parallel universes where it might.
Game over.
Kai's career is littered with this methodical, crisp play. Watching Kai play Magic, even on camera, is genuinely entrancing. Between the intentional way he flicks his cards, his crystal clear board states, how cleanly he places and announces his cards, everything, even in 1999, showed how thoroughly prepared and deeply practiced Kai is as a Magic player. It might sound silly, but watching Kai play Magic has always been equal parts impressive and inspiring. His attitude, demeanor, and obvious technical ability shone through with how he carried himself in every single event he's been in. I became a better Magic player simply watching Kai play Magic, not just because he was light years ahead of almost everyone, especially a random kid from Australia, but because the way he played was so clean, it was both so obvious how you were meant to be as a player and simultaneously clear how far ahead he was. So with a smile, Kai shakes his opponent's hand after mercilessly sweeping him in 3 straight games and enters the finals of the 1999 World Championships, already having secured Player of the Year for the first time ever in his career, taking the title from John Finkel. All he has to do is take 3 more games and he'll be a Magic World Champion, taking down an event at the highest level of competitive play for the first time, igniting a career that will go on to win much, much more than this. Once again, a series featuring Kai begins so quickly that we start the televised finals coverage in Game 2, with Kai already being up a game, swiftly assembling Key plus Monolith, which parlays into a quick Covetous Dragon for Budde. Mark Lepine tries to fight back, but has nothing to hold off the monstrous 6/5 flyer. You know it's bad when your mono-red opponent has no creatures in play and is pillaging your lands when you already have Key plus Monolith. Lepine loses Game 2 in a flash, and it does not get better for the American, who can do nothing but laugh as Kai deploys a Covetous Dragon on turn turn 2, followed up by a Mastercore the following turn to start his third. Laughing, Lepine futilely activates a curse scroll to ping Kai to a round of applause from the crowd, who is trying to see the fun side of the otherwise hopeless matchup. But as the camera flashes over to Kai's hand, despite needing to discard to upkeep his Mastercore that goes ahead and shoots Lepine's Avalanche Riders, we see the dragon's proverbial flames for the final time. The inevitable wildfire that, if cast, will ice this game for Kai Budde and crown him a world champion. Up against an overwhelming board and the impending doom of losing basically his entire board at some point, Lepine extends the hand as Kai comes crashing over with his creatures one last time, not even needing what he had in reserve to finish off the series. A 3-0 thrashing that took about 15 minutes total, as Lepine and honestly the rest of Budde's opponents never stood a chance. Kai doesn't lose on Sundays, and now the world knows why. A combination of impeccable play, preparation, deck choice, and sportsmanship that is likely once in a lifetime. And now you know where the famous phrase began. Kai's domination of the Pro Tour didn't stop at just one win, but 1999 was the event that introduced the German superstar to the world, a player that outplayed and outworked everyone in his path, sparking the most impressive resume that competitive Magic has ever seen in a fashion that no one believed was possible at the pro level. In the infancy of a still somewhat unknown competitive landscape, Kai showed us all the way. He proves that despite Magic being a game with luck in it, it was not a game of chance, but of skill. Magic rewards your preparation, your practice, your technical excellence, and your mental fortitude, and no one exemplifies these traits like Kai Budde. Kai is the player that everyone wanted to be like. As an aspiring competitive Magic player in my youth, I desperately wanted to emulate a shred of Kai's ability. But at the end of the day, it isn't his stack of trophies or his multiple Player of the Year titles or getting that same award named after him for winning it so often, or his brilliant play or his tactical genius or his ability to succeed at the highest level across 4 different decades of competitive Magic, or even his dry sense of humor that makes Kai the greatest of all time. It's not even his determination to keep playing at the highest level in the face of a terminal cancer diagnosis. It's his drive to see everyone else equal or better him. His dedication to being the best teammate he can be in a game mostly concerned with individual success. It's Magic's greatest asset, as it always has been, etched right alongside the name of the game. It's about the gathering. And when Kai Budde sits down to play, the world stops to watch. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, and if you want to get notified about more videos like this, you should tap that subscribe button too. Get in the comments and let me know your thoughts on Magic's greatest prodigy. And lastly, if you want to support the channel, you can do so by a Patreon, where you can get sneak peeks on future video ideas, contribute to the monthly mailbag, and join the Patreon exclusive Discord. You can also donate by a coffee if you're looking for another way to directly help the channel. YouTube is currently showing you another video if you wanted to dive deeper into the history of the Pro Tour.